As pageant master, I design, organise and produce the Lord Mayor's show. The highlight is the Lord Mayor's Golden State coach, but the stars are these horses. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Morning, Dominic. Very well, thank you.
How are you, Buster? All right? Kevin is in charge of the horses here at Young's Brewery, and he's also the Lord Mayor's coachman. Kevin, choice of horses must be very important for you at getting the right horses to do the right job, and presumably fitness and temperament have a lot to do with it.
Very much so, Dominic. You'd know better than anyone. On the day, it has to go right, and you get no second chances. So the horse's temperament has got to be right for that job. They need to be very, very bold, but also calm enough to listen to what you're saying to them. Because there's so much noise, sometimes they can't even hear what you're trying to say. So they do have to be very, very understanding, really.
Now, Kevin, you and Buster and the rest of the team have been doing this for about 7 years now. So, is there anything, if you had any mishaps in that time, is there anything you need to tell me that I don't know about?
Well, obviously, we're hoping not to tell you things, but we've been very fortunate. We've only really had the one incident, and that was last year actually, and it was on Buster's side. The bar was attached to the vehicle that his traces were attached to. It snapped, so he had to take the traces off. And so he wasn't actually attached to the vehicle. He was just walking beside it. So,
but he behaved himself.
He did. He behaved himself impeccably. I mean, he was fantastic actually, because he could have been a real nuisance.
Keeping a team of horses can be an expensive business, but these are the pride and joy of John Young, the chairman of Young's Brewery. Fortunately for us, he's a tremendous supporter of the show, which is good because we couldn't do it without him and them.
After the war, we were showing all over the country with this 4-horse team here, as you see, and for 7 years, as it says here, they were unbeaten anywhere in the country from 1947 to 1954. And they were competing about 20 or 24 teams every time. So it was an amazing achievement, driven by Harry Ransom, our head horsekeeper. And so on around about 1954, the Lord Mayor happened to be that year a great friend of my great-uncle Henry, who was chairman of the brewery. And he came to Henry and he said, "Henry, why do we have to hire these puny Cleveland bays from a horse dealer and pay money when you have the most famous horses in the country? What about you driving the coach, pulling the coach?" So Henry comes back and sees Harry Ransom and says, "Well, how would you like to be a coachman for the Lord Mayor?" Well, he said that'd be rather good. So off they went to have a look at the coach. When they got there, they were rather horrified to see that it had no brakes, and as it weighed 4 tons 1700 weight, that's a big weight, they thought it was pretty dangerous to pull that along without any brakes. And my uncle, being a very cautious man, he went to the Lord Mayor and he said, "Look, we don't want to do it because the thing's got no brakes, but a much better reason, I think, is that right in the heart of the city you have the most famous brewery of all, Whitbread's, run by Colonel Bill Whitbread. I think you should ask him, because I mean that would be city horses drawing the city coach." So off they went and they saw Bill Whitbread, and of course he was highly delighted. And furthermore, he said, "Well, you bring me the coach to the brewery and I'll see the brakes are put on and then we'll do it."
Well, I don't think we've had too much go wrong with the show itself, but the transport manager at Whitbread's, the previous providers of the horses for the coach, they told me this marvellous story about one of his draymen who had a stroke one morning doing his rounds, and it was a cold December morning, and the horse knew the route, carried on taking the dray round the route, stopped outside every pub, came back to the brewery with the poor old chap sat on the dray, bent over, and they prized his fingers from the reins, took him to hospital, and he was all right in the end. And as Colin said, you know, you find me a lorry that'll do that for you.
Anyway, sadly, when Whitbread's moved out of the city first, and then finally when they capitulated and sold out and there are no more Whitbreads, Colonel Bill would be turning in his grave, Donomy agreed, the pageant master, came along down here and said, "Now, John Young, how about you drawing the coach?" So that is how we came back full circle after 50 years to drawing the Lord Mayor's coach.
Have you always loved horses?
Oh yes, I've always loved horses. I first started riding when I was about 5 years old on a little pony at home. And then I went on to school to ride all over Salisbury Plain and learned to play polo as well.
Have you ever ridden one of those enormous horses?
I have actually. You can ride a Shire. It's quite a big. There's a picture up there of me sitting on one there. Yes.
That must be pretty uncomfortable and a bit scary.
Yes. No, they're very gentle giants.
Yeah.
Very good with children. The Shire breed is a wonderful breed.
These horses are in beautiful condition, and it's important that the great state coach is too, even though it's 250 years old and in constant use. The Lord Mayor's State Coach is housed in the Museum of London and brought out specially for the Lord Mayor's show. At the moment it's having a detailed record made of all the decorations and ornaments. There's a scan being made so that we have a computer model so that repairs can be undertaken. That coach still looks pretty wonderful, and it'll be out on the streets of the City of London this November again in the Lord Mayor's show, delighting the crowds, and so, of course, will these wonderful young horses.